Grandpa, what inspired your father and my great-grandfather to start Jackson Lumber Millwork back in 1946?
Your great-grandfather was a builder contractor in the greater Lawrence area. Right after the war, he saw a need for a good, strong building materials lumber dealer. He divorced himself from the construction business. He started the Jackson Lumber with the 8 employees, and was very successful because he was able to attract a lot of people. Because he was a tradesman, he understood the business. And so he decided to put his hammer and saws away and started Jackson Lumber in 1946.
And why the name Jackson? Why not Torrisi Lumber?
Well, that's a good point, Matthew. In 1946, right after the World War II, there was a fair amount of prejudice. And prejudice, the people from Italy, from Sicily, obviously were on the other side of the war for several years. And he felt that the builders, the remodelers, the contractors especially from Quebec, the French Canadians, who were excellent framing contractors, would not like to do business with somebody of Italian origin. However, they were not opposed to supporting somebody probably didn't have an Italian name. So he started his business on Jackson Street in Lawrence, a little corner of Jackson and Methuen Street. And he says, that's a good name, Jackson Lumber. It's very generic, you know. So people had no problems making out their check to Jackson Lumber, but he felt that they would not make out their check to Torrisi Lumber.
Right, that makes sense.
Yep.
Did a lot of the other lumber yards back then, were they more associated with family names back then? And
some were. There was a big lumber company in Lawrence called Lawrence Lumber. There was Unwin Lumber, named after the Unwin family. Some of us was Central Lumber. But there were other companies named after. Foster Lumber was named after the Fosters. So there were a lot of, in our industry, there are many companies named after the founders of the company.
Correct, yeah. Yeah, I think you still see some of that today a little bit.
You do see that. You do see that a lot today.
So paint us a picture of what that first yard looked like over on Jackson Street.
It's funny, I kind of recall it because as a youngster, a real youngster, on Saturday mornings my father would take me down to the yard. So this would have been in the late 40s. The yard wasn't paved. We had 2 floors. Up top, people would have all the lumber that was stored away, everything was done by hand. There was no forklifts, no mechanical unloading equipment, so everything was done by hand. The store was probably about 1,000 square feet. It had hardware, some tools, a little bit of paint. But that was how small lumber companies started, and that's how they existed for many, many years. Tradespeople used to go in there, get their hammer, get their nails. It wasn't a very sophisticated type of business as it is today. Things were pretty simple. So I enjoyed it. My father gave me a job there when I was 7 years old on Saturday mornings, picking up nails off the yard. So he gave me, for every penny, I think I had to give him 10 nails or something to that effect. Because, again, the contractors had boxes of nails and they fell out of their trucks, so I picked them up.
So you mentioned that initially Jackson Lumber started with 8 employees. And obviously it grew subsequently as time went on. What are some of your earliest memories of some of those employees that started the company with your father?
Well, they had to be multitask. So the man working in the yard was also a truck driver. The guy in the shop making window sash, he had other responsibilities. Anybody on the lumber county, which was like 1 or 2 people, like my Uncle Fred, besides selling to the builders and writing up orders, he also bought the lumber. So people had more than one task. It wasn't a specialized business at that time. You did very well with 8 people. You worked 5.5 days a week, Saturday mornings. In fact, we were open on Tuesday nights.
Interesting.
Tuesday nights. And people say, why do you open on Tuesday nights? Well, in Lawrence, after the war, but back in the 40s and 50s, even up to the 60s, the downtown Lawrence was a vibrant community. and a lot of stores. So people would do their shopping on Tuesday nights after working in the mills, wherever they were working. And some of the builders, because again, they didn't have the technology, came down to the store to see my father or my uncle to pay their bills. They paid their bills, they bought some things, materials they need for the next day. Mostly the store was open. It wasn't really the yard, but there were always 2 or 3 people working Tuesday nights. And that went on until we moved over to our present facilities on Market Street in Lawrence.
Then, once you made the move, no longer open on Tuesday nights?
Well, at that time, Lawrence was starting to not have the same activity. So back by the 60s, late 60s, things had changed in the community. Malls were starting to be built in Methuen and Salem, New Hampshire, which some of that retail business gravitated to those communities. So Lawrence, the downtown Main Street, called Essex Street in Lawrence, I wouldn't say it was a ghost town, but certainly business was retracting at that time.
So I want to jump a little bit to those yellow trucks. You see them everywhere. They're very distinguishable. Why did your dad choose that color, and what did that stand for in relation to Jackson?
You know, I always say to people, maybe even to yourself, and to people who ask me about the history of Jackson Lumber, I felt my father, unbeknownst to him or anybody else, understood marketing before the word marketing was even a term that people used. People go to college to get a marketing degree. Well, I explained the story to you about how we named the company. So when it came time to have the trucks, he started with 1 or 2 trucks. He decided to have them painted yellow. Why yellow? And to this day, they're yellow. So for almost 80 years now, it's the same color trucks. They're all yellow trucks. And he knew at that time, school buses were painted yellow. And why were they painted yellow? So they would stand out. So when our trucks were up and down the highways and the side streets of the community, they knew that truck belonged to Jackson Lumber. Many of our competitors chose to pick the common colors of red or white. That was their colors, a few green ones. Ours were always yellow. School bus yellow was actually a name of a color. Ford Motors at that time called their yellow school bus yellow, and that's what we chose.
So it was a good way to stick out amongst the competition.
You did, absolutely.
Yeah. So as you were growing up in the company, obviously underneath the leadership of your dad, how did your father mentor you as you grew in the business?
Well, I joined the company on a full-time basis 3 days out of college. Pretty young, 21 years of age. But I had worked the past 5 or 6 summers, so I had a taste of a lot of things that went on. Except for the manufacturing, the millwork, I worked on the lumber counter, I worked in the yard, I drove a pickup truck. So I understood what the business was like. When it came time to now spending time and becoming full-time and thinking about making this a career, it wasn't just my father that gave me the advice and told me how the business was laid out. My Uncle Fred was involved in the purchasing and the sales part of the business. It was a small company. At that time when I joined the company, there were only 20 people working there. So he really kind of mentored me, how I dealt with the vendors, how we negotiated different contracts, how we talked to and how we negotiated with our builder contractors and what we give them a package price on framing lumber. So I think between the both of them, in 3 or 4 years, by the time I was 26, I had a good handle on the business. In fact, my father at that time, I was made the general manager of the company. Granted, it wasn't very big, 25 people. My Uncle Fred was thinking about retiring, which he did several years later. So I was given the responsibilities. One of the responsibilities was taking me to the bank to be able to sign contracts, sign checks. And this happened right after he had a very mild heart attack. He just felt that it was time for somebody else to be responsible for signing checks and signing deals. It was very interesting. here I am, 26, 27 years of age, having to sign with the bank notes, being personally responsible for any of the loans for the company. That was a little bit of a shell shock. He says, "You'll be fine with it. Don't worry about it." Well, I didn't worry about it at the time, but every time you worry about it.
How did you handle being, you mentioned 26 at the age, obviously probably being the youngest guy in the room. How did you handle that dynamic?
Well, I think I worked with the staff, the employees, whether it be the drivers in the yard, the people in the shop. I was never one to look down at somebody. I looked at everybody had a responsibility, had a job to do, right? My personality was a little different than my dad. Even though I have a strong personality, his was, at that time, they used their voice a lot, at a loud voice, to talk to some of the people. I didn't necessarily have to do that. So I learned how to deal with people, how to deal with staff, how to deal with vendors, how to deal with contractors, especially the vendors. Negotiating with vendors, my Uncle Fred taught me that. Again, you know, when somebody said to him, "I can't get that delivered to you for another week," he says, that answer doesn't work for me. I need it tomorrow. So I kind of learned that pretty well.
You've mentioned a few times to me, and I have that go through my mind when I'm working here and not taking no for an answer. And your voice specifically runs through my mind when I hear pushback from vendors. So I think some of the lessons that he passed along to you have subsequently been passed down.
I hope so, Matthew, because this is not an easy business, right? And not that you beat them up all the time, but you know, the squeaky wheel gets the grease, right? True. So you have to ask, you have to keep pushing. Sometimes they can do it, sometimes they can't do it. Yeah. So you have to know how far you can push without hurting a relationship with our suppliers.
So you mentioned that you worked along your Uncle Fred, but you also worked along two other of your uncles, Tom and Sammy.
No, I never worked with Sammy. I worked with Tom. Tom was the yard foreman, yard manager. So that was in my young days when I was in high school and college. So I worked under him. You mentioned my Uncle Sammy. Sammy was a stockholder in the company, but he was a builder. And he actually took over my dad's business. Then he named it Torrisi Construction. And he built many buildings throughout the community. A couple of them, the location in Lawrence, where the store is located today, built in 1965. That was an original market called A&P. And we subsequently converted it to our store, but he built that building. He built a number of them. Unfortunately, he passed away at a very early age, but he was very instrumental as being a good sounding board as a contractor. Not that he gets special deals, but he always be able to tell my father and his two brothers, this is how we need to be treated and what kind of products we need for you to bring in, so we can use them.
There's a little inside.
Inside, but no special favors, but inside information.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah.
So I'm sure, as you know, family ownership can be rewarding, but also challenging. How did you find that, balancing that throughout the years? How did that work for you?
It didn't go. My father and I didn't agree on every single subject, Matthew. In fact, one time, either he sent me home or I quit. So it was, well, that's what happens in family business. You get enough is enough. I took off for a few days. We had a mediator come back and discuss it. It happened to be my brother-in-law, the company attorney. But he had his opinions. I'm a young upstart. I think I should do things a certain way. He always says, no, look, you have good ideas, but this is the way we're going to do it, right? Eventually, he listened, right, and we made some changes. And he was a good mentor. He was a good when I started full time in the business. I tried to instill that with your father and your Uncle Jay and your older cousin Joe, who now manage the business. They've all been with the company 30 plus years, 35. Joe's been with us 40 years now. And I tried to explain to them what some of the pros and cons and how you do business, right? But they have their ideas. and successful. They've been very successful for the 12, 13 years that I've been retired from the business. I do poke my head in the door, but I never say now, you should do this, or you should do that. In my father's case, even though I took over the ownership of the business, he always had an opinion about certain things I did. And I listened to him. I listened to him very well. So I think I became more closer to my dad in his late years. And I think that seems to be holding true with myself and the next generation.
Yeah, yeah. So growing up, one of the characteristics I think you've done a good job of trying to instill in me and my sisters and my cousins is having a strong work ethic. I think you've really driven home the importance of that, and that's something that I've taken to heart. You've mentioned stories in the past about unloading lumber cars in the hot sun, climbing up to the top, unloading them by hand. What kind of work did that teach you growing up as a young man?
Well, the first thing it taught me is stay in school. Stay in school. Those jobs were very important to the company. But again, what you're seeing today, Matthew, you're 30 years of age, you've been in the company a couple of years, and you're seeing a lot of things. The technology today we didn't have technology when I joined the company. Everything was pencil and paper. So we did a lot of handwork. Every order was written out by hand, priced by hand. There was no technology to decide how much lumber you need. You did it with your eyes. You walked around the yard. And so things are so different. I learned the lessons that hard work, you have to treat people with fairness, because those are jobs that at that time were very difficult to do, very difficult to do. And I respected the work that they did. The drivers, the yard guys, the people who worked in our shop, they weren't air conditioned. Even our shop, we have fans and everything else today. We didn't have that. So things were different when I joined the company in 1963. And I just see the advancements that this company has made in all aspects of it. I mentioned technology. When you have the amount of business and the diversity of products that we have to supply to our builders and contractors and remodelers and homeowners, they vastly outnumber what was available for them to use back in the days. But you still needed to have enough material there to sell to the builders. A contractor is no different today than they were then. They need the materials when they need it.
It's funny, you've mentioned it, my dad's mentioned it, talking about how things used to operate without technology. And for someone that's grown up only really ever knowing technology, it still is hard for me to wrap my head around how a business can function on pad and paper. It's drastically different than obviously how it is today, but it's a funny concept for me to try to wrap my head around.
Well, a basic invoice, somebody would come into the store, it was a 3-part paper. They would walk out with 2 parts to go to the yard. One they kept, one we kept, one was kept in the machine, so we made sure nobody could touch that one. We always had a copy of that. And then on Sunday mornings, your great-grandfather and his brother, Fred, would price out the tickets by hand and extend them. And how products were sold. I mean, everything was sold by the board foot. I'm not sure you even understand what board footage is.
I buy board foot all the time now.
I know you are. I understand that. But builders want to know by the linear foot or by the piece. That's how they buy product today. So that evolution has took place. Our first computer system was 51 years ago. 51 years ago. A company called Dataline. And I know it. I know that I can almost tell you the date, because it was only like a couple of weeks prior to your Aunt Lisa being born in 1974. So it's helped the company, but it didn't go without a lot of learning curves. And some of the old timers didn't like it. They were afraid of it. And it's probably no different today. Some of the technology I see today, I'm afraid I'm going to break something. So I always have to refer back to our tech guy, Raj, what should I do here? Because I get nervous about breaking something or doing something wrong, or opening up the wrong email and causing a virus attack. But I think the business today is as I said, more complex, and we have, fortunately, we have some wonderful people in the company that understand their facets of it. So there's really a lot of specialists in this company, not too many journalists. You know, the owners have to have a broad view of it, but I'm sure your father or your uncles are not people with a Class 2 license to drive some of those trucks and those forklifts behind those trucks. They're not skilled at that. Could they learn it? Possibly, but they've hired people to do those jobs.
I've heard multiple times in my time here at the company, and I've heard it growing up, but everyone talks about the Jackson way. So how would you describe what that means?
You know, being fair and honest with your staff, with your vendors, and with your customers. If you want them to stay in the company, if you want customers to come back, if you want vendors to supply you at competitive prices, you've got to be fair with them and honest with them. And I think that mantra, we've never been known as the lowest price lumberyard in the community, but we provide quality products, we provide the service to go along with it, and we're willing to listen to any one of the three. The staff, if they have a complaint, the vendors, if they have a complaint, and our customers, if they have a concern. So any one of those three, all those three are very, very important to helping us to build this business over the years, over these last 80 years.
So going back to the lumberyard on Market Street, when you moved over to Market Street, Jackson was the first company to have a drive-through lumberyard. Where did that idea come from, and how did that idea come to fruition?
That was your grandfather, great-grandfather, I'm your grandfather, your great-grandfather, because we were involved in various associations, and one of those associations provided somebody that gave you how to lay out a lumberyard, and they had done this in other parts of the country, but nobody else in this part of the world in New England did it. So we brought him in for his expertise. We had knocked down some old buildings. Where we are in Market Street was the location for what they call the David Brown Bobbin Shop. And the bobbins would be used in the mills back in the early 1900s. When that business went away to the south, the bobbin company was available. That building was available to us. We bought it, renovated it, added it on, put a store in there, and there was a place to put a drive-through yard. It was a U-shaped yard, so that we had customers would come in, they would get their ticket in the store first, and one or two guys in the yard would service them everything they needed that fit into the lumberyard. And then if there was long length lumber or roofing or sheetrock or drywall, they had to go to the big warehouse. But the same person would take care of them from A to Z.
Was the drive-through lumberyard, was that a differentiator amongst our competitors, or did it just become commonplace?
In time, it became commonplace. We were written up in various trade magazines in the New England, New York area, and we always welcome competitors or even people from our industry. Not we were bragging about it, but because in our case, we would visit them over time. We belong to various organizations through LMC and through Northeastern Retail Lumber Dealers Association, where we have the opportunity to visit other yards and we learn from them. What works for them could possibly work for us. So we're very happy to do that with our friends in the lumber industry.
So you just mentioned LMC. So can you speak a little bit more? LMC, that was a big step for the company. I think it changed the way that we operated. How did that come to be?
Well, at that time, LMC would only have, first of all, they had about 100 lumber dealers, mostly in the New England, mid-Atlantic area, a few down south, mostly in the Carolinas. That's as far as they went. And they would have what they call single affiliation in a community, meaning that if there was another lumberyard in your community, they would stay away. They would not invite you to join. So there was a lumber company called Lawrence Lumber that they decided to close their doors in 1969. The following year, one of the board members, the chairman of the board, along with the president, came to visit my dad and myself and laid out what the parameters were, what the investment was going to be on our part, and what the advantages were going to be. My dad, being a little bit older, obviously, says, Al, you take it over. You be the contact person. This was 55 years ago, 1970. And from that point on, we started to buy products a little bit at a time, our lumber, our plywoods, our roofing, our drywall, our finished inventory moldings, and it's become, for us, a very successful arrangement. I've gone through the chairs. I became a board member, and then I became a chairman of the board. Your father, Mark, has done the same thing, went through the chairs as a board member, and just retired as the chairman of the board last year. So it's been very helpful to us. We learn an awful lot. It's been advantageous financially for the company.
Yeah. Did they approach us to join their?
They approached us.
Yeah.
They came to us because they knew that they lost a dealer, a good-sized dealer in Lawrence. They were good size. We were about similar size in volume, but they decided they didn't have another generation, and his land was more valuable to sell it. So Mr. Lamprey decided to sell the business.
Were there any risks that you took over the years that maybe didn't work out quite as you planned? And going through those types of situations, what did you learn and what did you take from those?
How much time do you have?
Oh, we have time.
I think we tried different things, in our business. In our millwork shop, we decided that we would get into the office petition business because one of our industrial customers, one of our high-tech companies called Wang Laboratories, was growing, and they asked us to get into that business. So they helped us get into it. We thought we could expand it. We went to marketing. And the bottom line is we invested money into a business we really didn't know an awful lot about because we didn't realize that the depth of some of the major competitors. So we took a risk, but it wasn't a major one. We retrenched and we got out of that business. Probably the biggest risk we took was back in the 80s when the economy was flying. It was really good. This is 1985. And we were bursting at the seams when it came to our millwork operation in Lawrence. In fact, we rented a couple of buildings as satellite locations. So there was a building available for us to buy in 1985, 1986 in Salem, New Hampshire. Never realizing we paid at the top of the market for the building. We had to retrofit it. We had a bad recession that started in 1988. It went on to 1992. So we lost some serious money. We had some employees that we had to lay off. Everybody had to take a cut in pay. It's probably the most gut-wrenching time of my business life, Matthew. And we all learned from that. Your father, your uncle, your cousin, Joe, all happened to be in the business right at that time. Joe came in 1985. Your father came in 1990. Jay came in 1991. So they witnessed what took place, and they learned the lesson just like I did. So they have taken that lesson of making sure that we're conservative, we watch what we're doing, we pay our bills on time, and we're very fortunate that the way we've managed the company in the last 30 plus years. We learned a lesson. So with that lesson, we hope not to duplicate again. We've expanded, we've bought lumber yards, but always with the idea about how this was going to be a success. We weighed everything before we made the decision.
Continuing on with the idea of taking risks, I think one that has clearly paid dividend is making the decision to move up to Raymond, New Hampshire. How was that decision-making process? What did that look like? What went into that?
Well, this was 2002. Again, we're bursting at the seams in Lawrence. Again, we had retrenched back, and now after 8-10 years, it was growing. At that time, my nephew Joe had taken over the millwork operation. So he came to me, he says, look, we've got to find some space. So we had, 2 years earlier, we had bought a lumber yard in Haverhill, Massachusetts. And part of their business model was builders and contractors here in southern New Hampshire, more so than we did in Lawrence. So between the idea of building a lumber yard someplace in southern New Hampshire and expanding a lumber business, I went looking with a realtor for some land. And we came across this piece of land. The land was originally used by a company that was building the highway called Route 101. They used the site here for gravel and hot top mix. And when this highway was done, they didn't need this land any longer. So they vacated it, they put it up for sale. It was put on the market. As you know, we're less than a quarter of a mile to 101. It was easy access to the highway. So we made an investment. It took us a year. We went through the different levels of getting our approvals from the town. The bank was very generous with us in helping us secure a loan for this facility. And as I say, as you can see now, it's our largest facility. We have enough room. We were able to buy 22 acres at the time. You know, when your great-grandfather started Jackson Lumber on Jackson Street, it was less than a quarter of an acre. So just think about the size that they did business out of that small area compared to what we do up here in Raymond, New Hampshire.
When you see Jackson Kitchen Design today, how does that compare to the kitchen department that we started or that you started with? And how has that grown?
That has, well, we made an investment to separate the kitchen department from the retail store on Market Street. We felt that the customers were looking to spend some time looking at a fancy showroom. So we rented some space. There was some space available in North Andover, and we built a 2,800 square foot showroom with all the products that you need for a kitchen. Even some products we display for building materials. You can see there's some windows displayed there and some siding displayed there. But the bulk of it is obviously kitchens. And it gave a nice area for people to sit down, plenty of room, because the showroom for kitchens was like about 1,000 square feet on Market Street. So we're able to offer more lines of cabinets. And that business has grown. We had 2 designers when we left Market Street, then we had 2 plus a manager, and that now has become 7 or 8 designers taking care of the contractors, remodelers, and consumers of our clientele.
So your dad was a big proponent in charity and giving back to the community. I know Jackson's been very involved in all the communities that we've operated in over the years. What are some examples that you can give me of how Jackson has shown support to the Merrimack Valley, but really any of the communities that we've operated in?
Well, we're obviously our home is Lawrence. As you may know, Lawrence has a lot of needs. It's one of the poorest cities in the Commonwealth. So we are involved in the Boys Club, very strong. This morning, as it turns out, I had a meeting with Lazarus House. They're an organization that's been around for 40 years. I served as president of that, and I'm still on their advisory board, giving them some help and their mission to feed the poor. There isn't an organization that hasn't come to us for some kind of support. The local hospital, Lawrence General Hospital, I've been on that board. We ran a capital campaign for them, capital campaign for Lazarus House, a capital campaign for another organization. So when they ask people like myself to get involved, it isn't just the checkbook. They're looking for people. The Exchange Club is another one, another service club. So while we're spread out now, it was a little different when I came into the business. I was able to get involved in these because, again, we're pretty much Greater Lawrence. It becomes a little more difficult to become locally involved in some of these other locations, Raymond, Amesbury. But when somebody, the Boys Club or a softball team is looking for support, they come to Jackson. Because, again, where they see us as a cornerstone, we hardly ever say no to them. Many golf outings, people looking for support. So we don't hide from that. And if it's for the right reasons, Habitat for Humanity, we donate an awful lot of materials. Some of the materials that have come back for credit, if they're in good order, we send them along to them at no charge. And any kind of other building materials that when they build houses or remodel houses. And so involvement, your father's involved in the Greater Lawrence Voc School on one of their boards there. It's a little bit of a time commitment, but in the long run, there's some satisfaction of helping people that can certainly use our help.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about the company culture here at Jackson. To you specifically, how important is trust, whether that be amongst the employees, amongst the vendors, amongst our customers? How much of an importance does that play to you?
If you don't have trust, what do you have?
Right.
There's nothing there, Matthew. If your employees don't trust you to treat them as best you possibly can, there's limitations. They all know that, right? This isn't some of these high-tech companies that are making billions of dollars. This is a very competitive business. And making some kind of a small profit is important, but giving back to the employees. I mentioned too the recession that we had, that we kind of like in 1993 we came out of that recession. I made a promise to all the employees that were with us at that time, if we made money, they would make money. So for the last 32 years, we've had a bonus incentive plan and we haven't missed a year. We haven't, even though we've had some downturns, we're able to give them something. So they trust us. Our customers trust us to treat them fairly. That we're going to give them we're not going to give them a bad count of materials. We're not going to give them shoddy millwork materials. Things happen. If they happen, we take care of it. And the last leg of it is the vendors. They trust us that we're going to use their products. We're going to pay them when they're supposed to be paid. That's one thing. We don't miss discounts in this company. Discounts are important. That's how you make some profit.
Yeah.
So all three legs are very, very critical. They trust us, and we're not going to let that trust go.
Yeah. Aside from trust, do you feel like there's any core values that your dad installed in Jackson that are still prevalent today?
I think I kind of think about him a lot and of some of the things that he did, but I think I can explain to you, I think giving back to the community, it was one thing. I mean, he was a pretty busy guy, but he was involved in many organizations, the Rotary Club, the Chamber of Commerce, things that I tried to do myself. So I think that's part of our core values is, giving back to the community where there's need and helping out where you can.
So let's move a little bit to more current state Jackson Lumber. So you are obviously enjoying your retirement. I know you enjoy Florida during the winters, get to escape some of the cold months up here. What was it like handing the reins over, if you will, handing leadership over to my father, my uncle, and my cousin, Mark, Jay, and Joe?
Turning over a business that I was the chief bottle washer, as they say, for 30 years was not an easy task. They weren't pushing me out the door, but you can see that they were growing into the business, and all 20+ year veterans with the company. I had my opportunity with my father. He turned the reins over when I was 40 years of age. He was 75. So this was a little younger. I had not turned 70 yet. I was still wanted to be touch and do things in the company, but going to Florida was important. But I was only in Florida 3 or 4 months a year when I first retired. So coming back in April or May, I was always, my place to go every morning was Jackson Lumber, coming to Market Street, 7:30. It was difficult in the beginning to keep my mouth shut. Very, very difficult. In time, I've learned to not give that advice or tell them you should do this or you should do that, because what I've seen is that they've grown the business successfully. Some of their things that they've done may be a little different than mine. I never would disagree with what they did, but I would have probably done things a little differently, right? But I think they've emulated a lot of the quality attributes necessary to running a successful business. Paying your bills on time, taking care of your staff, taking care of your customers' problems. I watch your father because I share, not that I share an office, but my office is right next to him. So I hear what he does with both the vendors and contractors. So I can listen to him. Joe's up here in Raymond. My son Jay, your Uncle Jay, is in the other part of the building, so he's got a difficult job in making sure that our finances are paid on time and asking our contractors to pay their bills on time, which sometimes is not the easiest task in the world. So the three of them have different aspects of the business that they're responsible for, but they meld together. I've listened to their disagreements because they don't agree on every subject, and nor should they. They have opinions, how things are run, but at the end of the day, there's no disagreement, so to speak. They leave and peg off together if they have to, or go to lunch together.
Right.
That's important.
Can have an argument one afternoon.
That's right.
Go to lunch the next day, no problem.
You can disagree with somebody without being disagreeable.
Right.
Remember that.
Yeah. Is there any specific advice or guidance that you gave to them as they stepped into those leadership roles?
I think they watched me. I mean, they were carefully watching what I did. But again, there was plenty of time. This transition took place. They knew about it. The employees didn't know about it. I announced my retirement a week after the holidays and at Christmas time. I had stayed back. I was here. I called for a special meeting for the entire company. Virtually everybody was there who could be there. So when I announced it, they couldn't believe it. The employees, they thought I was going to be working there and run the company forever. And I said to them, I'm comfortable, very comfortable that this company will continue the success that it's had these last 10, 15 years after the bad recession. I'm going to be around, I'm not leaving to go 100 miles away, 1,000 miles away, 2,000 miles away. I'm going to go to Florida for several months, but I'll be around. But I trust the three of them to run this business fairly, honestly, successfully, and making sure they take care of all aspects of the business. Yeah. And they haven't proven me wrong now, Matthew, after it's been now 13 years.
Still going strong.
Still going strong,
yeah.
Right.
So my aunt, your daughter, she runs our kitchen design department.
Yes.
How has it been watching her grow into that role and how she's really grown that aspect of the business?
Well, here's a case about Lisa. Lisa came into the business. She had just had Olivia, her daughter, so she was in between jobs. And I says, look, Lisa, you should think about, do something with the company before you go into something else that you may like. So she says, okay, let me try part-time. I says, probably the best place would probably be in the kitchen design center, where you're going to learn from somebody. The manager at the time was in his early 70s, and I've been with the company as an installer and now as a manager. You'll learn from Dick. He's probably going to retire in 3 or 4 years, and if you watch what he's doing, then maybe you could become the manager of the kitchen department. Unfortunately, the manager passed away 3 months after Lisa started on a part-time basis. So she was thrown into the pot of fire, so to speak, because Jay, Mark, and Joe had other responsibilities. They didn't have any time to spend. They gave us some advice. So with the help of some of the veteran kitchen designers, she learned the business. A little bit of the time, the vendors were very helpful. And today, she manages that department almost by herself. She does get financial advice from Jay and some management advice from Mark. And now she's working closely with Joe in marketing. So all these things are going to be very important for her success. And I think she's proved me. When I talk to her about some of the situations she's involved in, I'm kind of pleasantly surprised how well she's doing there.
Yeah.
But it took time, Matthew. Hopefully you're not throwing it today. Hopefully you're here and you're learning. It's going to be a process. It's going to be a process because there's a lot to learn in this business.
Well, that leads me really greatly into my next question I had for you is, as myself, Ryan, possibly my sisters, some of my cousins, the fourth generation comes in to start working for Jackson. What advice do you have for our generation, moving forward, trying to take advantage of the opportunity that we have, make the most of it, grow the company, all of that?
Well, the first bit of advice I'm going to give you is keep the business in the business. Don't bring the business home. Your spouse, your sister's spouses, if they get married, or your cousins, whatever they may be, home is for the home, business for the business. So that's the first bit of advice. Second thing is listen to what they have to say. There's going to be a leader, or going to be maybe a board of directors or whatever. But listen, get the intake from other people. Some you're going to accept, some you're not going to accept, and put them in positions where they're going to succeed. That's important too. Some people are cut out to do certain tasks in the company, certain responsibilities, but they should have a broad view of what goes on in the business. That's why Lisa comes to these managers meetings every month. She gets a taste of what goes on with manufacturing, what goes on with credit, what goes on. That's important. You'll learn that. So sharing all that information with the next generation, the fourth generation. That's going to be a task that can be handled if it's laid out properly. It's very difficult for a company to even get past the second generation. So here we are, the third generation is running the business, and now the fourth generation is, one's here, two are here, more may be coming. But as you all know, there's been a lot of cases in large companies where there's hostility built up among families. Can't let that happen. That will destroy the business.
Yep.
Okay?
Yep. So if your father were here today and he could take a walk through Raymond, Lawrence, Woburn, Amesbury, the kitchen center, what do you think he'd be the most proud of?
The growth of the company. An orderly, successful growth of the business. The equipment. If he came up here and saw the yellow trucks that we have and the forklifts and the equipment and that new door machine that they purchased that was well over $1 million, he was in his down. He probably wouldn't say it to me loudly, but he says, "Are you crazy?" But as it's been proven that you've got to invest money to make money, right?
Yep.
You've got to invest money. So you need equipment, you need forklifts, you need the right people working the business. Otherwise, you'll be status quo or you're going to go backwards.
Yeah.
So orderly, making sure you can afford it, right? And don't make the mistakes, as I alluded to, that we made 40 years ago, growing too fast without a real good business plan. And now, any decisions when they're going to spend any money for capital improvements, they talk about it and says this makes sense. Some repairs have to be made, obviously, right. But capital improvements, buying a forklift, these trucks that you're buying now today, I remember buying trucks with my Uncle Freddie back in the 60s. They were $12,000, $14,000. They were 16-foot flatbeds. Didn't have any mechanical, didn't have the forklifts behind them. Now these trucks are $250,000. They're bigger trucks. They have a big forklift behind them. So the cost of, I think he would be blown away what things cost today. A 2x4, Matthew, when I was pricing out tickets with him was 64 cents for a 2x4 8-foot stud. Back when we had the COVID problem, the pandemic, they were over $10. He would be blown away by but people nuts.
Yeah.
Crazy.
They still paid for them.
They paid for them because they needed them. So the cost of everything. Your grandfather, when he purchased a piece of property right on the water up at Seabrook, paid $2,500 for it. The same lot next door was sold 8-10 years ago for $750,000. So numbers would blow him away.
Yeah. Yeah.
They'd blow him away.
But you think he'd be proud of what he would see today?
Well, I think he'd be proud of the fact that I've continued on with the business, and that I had the next generation. I had a nephew, I had sons that were interested in the business. It's not easy to work for a family member. You're kind of separated a little bit from your father day in, day out. Someday you may be in the office next to him, but I was nearby him all the time. We were, so it was hard to hide from him from me and me from him. So some of the things I may have done, he would say in a loud voice, but we get along.
Yeah. So looking back at all your years working here at Jackson, the good, the bad, the ups and downs, what are some of your favorite memories you have looking back at your time at Jackson?
I guess obviously to see the family business get into the fourth generation. Again, I was the second generation, and who knew whether I was going to last into it, right? And that was ever the thought process. You're proud of your business. My father, when I joined the company at age 21, I really didn't have a job. I tried to negotiate with my father about what I thought I was worth, because I says, all my college friends are making X. I should be making the same amount of money since I worked the last 5 summers. But he taught me humility real quickly, right? You know nothing about this lumber business. I'll pay you when you earn it. Mm-hmm. And that's the way I think people should be treated. You earn it, you'll be compensated for it. But people shouldn't be walking in and thinking they're going to get top dollar without really knowing what our business is all like. So my happiness that I'm very proud of is when I see that we have 3 generations alive today, somewhat involved in the business. I still have a title. They still call me the chairman of the board. I don't think it's that important, but they still give me a title. But I'm respected, and I'm able to walk around. My standing joke is, the key fits the front door and the alarm code works. And to your father or your uncles say it doesn't work and take it away from me, this is my second home when I come up. When I come up north from Florida, I love being around the people. I love watching activity. I love talking to customers. Tomorrow I have lunch with one of our customers. Next week I have another one scheduled. Just quietly, I'm not selling, just to hold on to relationships that sometimes Jay, Mark, and Joe, they're busy with other customers and other people. They're doing a marvelous job in building relationships, continue keeping good relationships.
Correct. Yeah.
We have good ones with our customers. We have a great staff, a great group of outside salespeople, good designers, and a lot of core people that make this company work. Every job is important, Matthew. There isn't a job, people wouldn't be here. People are driving trucks, people work hanging doors, and you had the chance to witness that, because you've been through 2 years now of seeing how this company operates and how important those jobs are. It gives you a lot more respect. And every one of them, your uncles, your father, they started at the bottom. And that's where you should start in the business. Nobody, as I said to you early on, you're not coming in as a vice president.
Correct.
Someday you may earn that title, but you have to learn the business. You have to learn to get the respect of the people if we want this business to continue on a successful business in the 4th generation and maybe beyond.
Yeah. You mentioned, respecting the employees, finding the right people for those jobs. What do you think the secret is to finding those types of employees?
It's difficult today to hold on to quality people because they think the grass is always greener. And if they're here for several years, 3 to 5 years, they get to understand the culture of the business. Some have left, some have come back. But we've had some people here 35, 40, 45 years. Whether that's going to be the trend in this time period because people think that the grass is greener, I don't know. I really don't know. We try to be fair with people. We try to compensate them the best we possibly can. But if somebody offers them more money and they think it's going to be a better opportunity for them, we try to explain to them what the advantages are to staying with our company. Sometimes we win, sometimes we lose in those situations. And sometimes people call us, can we come back? And we've taken people back.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that's the trend today, so I can't talk for the next generation, the third generation.
So one last thought here before we wrap up for the day. When you look back at all of it, the family, the people, the growth, the company in general, what makes you the most proud?
I think you've said it all. I think it's the fact that we're together. I have lunch with your father and your uncle. I'm welcomed. The fact that this is a cohesive group of people, no showboats, people doing their jobs, respecting all parts of the business. That's what gives me the most proud. I don't hear complaints from the outside. I'm thanked for our community involvement by some of these nonprofits. Your brother, as I said, your father is involved. He's also involved in the Boys Club. He's on that board. So they see that we have involvement in this business. And your grandfather, your great-grandfather, always instilled that in us. That giving back is very important to having the satisfaction of doing what's right. His pet phrase to me, and probably pet phrase to your generation, your father and your uncles, how big a steak do you need? Enjoy what you have, but you give back, share it with other people.
Yep.
Share the profits with your employees, share the profits with the people who need your help, and make sure there's something for yourself and your family. That's it.